Trump and company insist the war effort is on track, while some Republicans express concern. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
All the news you need to know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Another deadline is about to come and go. Last weekend, U.S. President Donald Trump gave Iran 48 hours to completely reopen the Strait of Hormuz, or he said the United States would target the country's power plants. But then Trump extended that deadline by 5 days. Today was supposed to be that deadline, but now the U.S. president says it's being extended again by another 10 days, with Trump saying talks with Iran are ongoing. During a cabinet meeting yesterday, Trump continued to insist the U.S. military's mission in Iran is ahead of schedule. He says Iran wants to make a deal, and he also claimed that before the U.S. airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities in June, that country was just weeks away from having a nuclear weapon.
Their Air Force is gone. Their anti-aircraft and communications capabilities are totally dismantled. And one of the problems they do have when they deal with us is we deal with people and the people aren't able to communicate with anybody else. So, because all of their leadership has been gone. The first level is gone, and they met to pick a new level, and they're gone. They're all gone because they didn't make a deal and because they're sick people. They're really sick. They're really sinister, sick people. And if anybody thinks it was okay to have a group of people like this to have nuclear capability, nuclear weapons, and if we didn't attack with the B-2 bombers, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 2 weeks of that, maybe 4 weeks. But between 2 and 4 weeks, they were planning to have a nuclear weapon. If we didn't hit them at that time with the B-2 bombers, and one of the great air raids in history, maybe the greatest.
During that same meeting, the United States Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said once again, Operation Epic Fury will not lead to an endless war.
It's a decisive campaign with clear objectives to destroy Iran's offensive military capabilities and ensure they never obtain a nuclear weapon. This is stuff for the history books. This is stuff for legacy. Mr. President, you are acting now to ensure future generations do not have to live under the threat of a nuclear-armed Iran.
Trump again criticized NATO. He claimed a coalition is coming together to try and do something to secure the Strait of Hormuz. But he said NATO should have been in the region by now. He had choice words for the UK and Australia.
I think he's a lovely man. I do. I think he's a lovely man. But I think he did something that was shocking. He didn't want to help us. And maybe in particular that country, we were the longest bond, the longest ally. Australia, too. Australia was not great. I was a little surprised by Australia. I wouldn't say anybody was great, other than the 5 countries in the Middle East. We never really had very much support. We spend trillions of dollars supporting countries, and this is Little League. This isn't the big league deal. This is sort of Little League pool for us. Look, we decimated them in a period of a week. In the first week, it was over. In the first few days, it was over. I think the Navy took us 3 days to essentially annihilate them. They weren't there. So if there's ever a big one, which I hope there's not, but if there's ever a big one, I don't think they're going to be there. And that's not fair, and we have to remember that as a country.
There are also reports that some MAGA Republicans are uneasy with what they're being told about the future direction of this war and the potential for a U.S.-led ground invasion. For example, Nancy Mace, a sometimes outlandish and controversial Republican member from South Carolina, has now become a fierce critic of the war, declaring this week that she would vote against any more funding for the Pentagon.
We are now almost 4 weeks into this, and I would tell you the frustration that reverberated in that room today, and I got to be careful about what I say because it was in a SCIF, and it was a classified setting, TSSCI clearances only, but there was frustration that reverberated throughout based on the information that we were receiving. And I'm MAGA Mace. I am a conservative before I'm Republican, and I support President Trump. I think he's done an excellent job to where we are today. But when we're talking about troops on the ground, that is a different stage in an operation or in a war that has a significantly greater gravity than any other thing that we've talked about. And I look back at what happened after 9/11. Even President Bush, who I opposed going into Iraq, still came to Congress and got an AUMF, or authorization use of military force. He did that for Iraq in 2011. He did the same thing for Afghanistan in 2002. When we were bombed by Pearl Harbor, it was President Roosevelt that came to Congress to get authorization to go to war. And so in this stage of it, Congress needs to have a greater say, I believe.
The United States is preparing to send thousands of additional troops to the Middle East, which has prompted speculation about some kind of ground attack. Major news outlets report the Pentagon is getting ready to send about 3,000 troops from the Army's 82nd Airborne. Meanwhile, Iran's ambassador to the UN told the Associated Press that his country is ready for a ground operation, which he predicted Iran would win.
The fact that Iran has imposed its control on the whole region is a big victory. The fact that what they were campaigning at the first now has been reduced to opening the Strait of Hormuz is a big victory for Iran. We are ready for any scenario, including any kind of ground operation. I think that is a place that we will be able to defeat them. And I think that would be one of the big mistakes if they take that decision.
As for the reaction to all of this news on financial markets today, oil prices are higher, with WTI oil futures at $97.62 US a barrel. Stock markets mixed. The Dow down 400, a loss of about 1%. NASDAQ down 250 points, a loss of 1.5%. The S&P 500 down 50 points, less than 1%. The TSX is up slightly on the day, up 130 points. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
You have questions
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
on News Radio.
He's our expert in communications. Political communications will be our focus today. Barry McLoughlin is the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants, with offices in Washington and Ottawa. Barry teaches at the University of Ottawa's Professional Development Institute and at Cape Breton University's Shannon School of Business. You can follow Barry on a Substack, listen to his podcast, and he joins us every Friday. Welcome back.
Great to once again be with you, Rob. The days are flying.
Today. Yeah, we're going to talk today about whether there is some sort of transformation in political communications underway. There's been some debate this week about whether that is happening and whether things are really in our political communications world changing for the better. I have been thinking a lot this week in light of this debate about Pierre Elliott Trudeau's famous "just watch me" moment. This may take some people back. I mean, what a few people may remember is that the Prime Minister of Canada, you have to picture this, it's October of 1970. The military is in the streets. The FLQ has kidnapped two people, James Cross and Pierre Laporte, and the Prime Minister is confronted by the press gallery on the steps of Parliament Hill. And Pierre Trudeau stands there with his famous gunslinger pose, and he debates openly with the journalists on the steps of the Parliament Hill for like 10 minutes. He's speaking freely. There's no orchestration. He's giving as good as he gets, and he seems genuinely interested in the debate. Let's play the clip.
And my choice is to live in a society that is free and democratic, which means that you don't have people with guns running around in it.
All right, then.
And one of the things I have to give up for that choice is the fact that people like you may be kidnapped.
Sure.
Sir, if you had to right now...
But this isn't my choice, obviously. You know, I think it's more important to get rid of those who are committing violence against the total society and those who are trying to run the government through a parallel power by establishing their authority by kidnapping and blackmail. And I think it's our duty as a government to protect government officials and important people in our society against being used as tools in this blackmail. No, you don't agree to this, but I'm sure that, once again, with hindsight, you would have probably found it preferable if Mr. Cross and Mr. Laporte had been protected from kidnapping, which they weren't, because the steps we're taking now weren't taken. But even with your hindsight, I don't see how you can deny that.
No, I still go back to the choice that you have to make in the kind of society that you live in.
There's a lot of bleeding hearts around who just don't like to see people with helmets and guns. All I can say is go on and bleed, but it's more important to keep law and order in this society than to be worried about weak-kneed people who don't like the looks of a soldier.
At any cost? At any cost? How far would you go with that? How far would you extend that?
Well, just watch me.
Just watch me.
Well, I remember
a scene like that just never happens now, Barry.
You're right. That was an amazing confrontation. It was at the most, I remember the army in the streets in Ottawa, and that was Trudeau's moment of truth in all of this. We would call that the moment of truth. His character, his determination. Yeah, he played the gunslinger mode, no question about it. Bleeding hearts, just watch me. By the way, sidebar, that was that Peter Riley was a reporter, and he was the one challenging back and forth with Trudeau. And guess what? Out of the strength and profile of that, Peter Riley ran for the Conservatives in Ottawa West and won the election. So there were two kind of positives in terms of those people right there. But yeah, it was an amazing moment. And you are right. We don't see a lot of that anymore, the kind of confrontation moment like that. And some of that maybe is the way it's engineered. We don't necessarily, we've actually prepped, of course, politicians for scrums. And they're a lot organized more today. They've got you walk up to those microphones. That's the way they are. They're not going to come up and lunge microphones at you as much on your way in or way out. So, and every prime minister, including Mark Carney, knows when they get to that stairway, they can start asking me questions. And just as Justin Trudeau did previously, you kind of hit your line and then start moving up the stairs. Even Stephen Harper did that. There are these moments that they're aware of. You got to get your question in fast and then get out of Dodge once you give it.
Just seems to me that is a throwback that you never see before. Everything now is so orchestrated. The leader makes a speech. The leader takes a few questions. Does he answer the questions? Not really. They often just repeat the lines from their speech.
Yeah.
So there are rarely any surprises. There are really no more any just watch me moments, Barry.
Oh, yeah. I mean, surprise is a real bad word for most politicians. They can't manage surprises. So they want to know, what's the headline out of this story? What's the soundbite? So you have to write the sound bites into the speech, and you do a little practice on, can we get to the bite? Because that's what's going to emerge out of this whole thing. Your 7 seconds max. You got to hit that mark. And many of them do it, and some talk around it, through it, and they never really make the kind of news they wanted to make out of it. And if they go on too long, they make other news. Unintended news is another negative. Most politicians don't want unintended news.
Yeah, which explains the danger of sitting down, I guess, for 2.5 hours on a popular podcast like Joe Rogan, which I want to talk about next. All the different sort of media environments that political leaders are trying to navigate these days with Barry McLoughlin from TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Barry McLoughlin is with us, the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. In the current social media age, it seems to me, Barry, a political leader has to be able to, think about this. You have to generate quick clips for platforms like X and TikTok. You have to be able to produce a soundbite for the national news. You have to do a 5 or 10 minute interview with what I would say is the legacy media, like with people like me, interviews like this one. And you have to be able to sit down and endure 2.5 hours on a podcast like Joe Rogan. Mm-hmm. It's quite an environment that our leaders are in right now.
Oh, yeah. We are in a complete, multi-channel, multi-platform world today. It really what's happened is the politicians have become content creators themselves. That's a big step from maybe 5 or so years ago. They're like Michelle Rempel-Garner, she's just running her own show there. There's a number of them like that. that are, I have to say, very effective in doing it. They shape their narrative. They know what their narrative is. They know the message they want to get across. A little edge in there, a little confrontation at a parliamentary committee, bingo. That's, that the platforms all require a certain amount of conflict energy of some kind. They can't just be droning on about issues. So if you're going to use it as a lecture device, forget it. But you mentioned podcasts, and I think that's the biggest single shift from, let's say, 5 years ago. People are doing it on their walks and runs. They're listening to long form media, podcasts. Your show is podcast. Your show,
Yes.
And the content of it. So they're prepared to, while they're doing other things. I do the same thing. I'm out raking my lawn, or I got still shoveling, by the way, here in Ottawa. I got the AirPods in. So that's what people are doing. They're not sitting down, tuning into a station. They're just going, and then the podcast, they're in effect curating their own, menu, and that's really a big shift. Right. So I think that the world is still in great flux, great change, and the politicians have to really be masters of all these, or you can get caught up, hoisted on your own petard. A wrong moment, didn't really think it through, blurted something out, and now you got a problem. So I think that this is something that it's made them a lot more aware of what's going on around them. They have to be.
But with this is what I want to ask you. With the advent of the more long form interview, the 2.5 hour podcast, some are arguing, well, we're into a more freewheeling era of communications. The leaders are willing to maybe speak more freely than they would before. I don't entirely agree. In many ways, it's more choreographed than ever before because of social media, TikTok videos, these sorts of things. I'm not sure if we're really going back to those freewheeling days where you see Pierre Elliott Trudeau standing on the steps of Parliament Hill, going back and forth with the press gallery for 10 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think they mean that when they talk about freewheeling. I think it's, there's a microphone. Sure, I'll just repeat a lot of stuff I've been saying over the past months or whatever. Here's another chance for me to do it. They don't really, it's not really soundbite for a lot of those. Those are just talking about things in longer form. Some are better at it than others. Obviously, Poilievre is very good at that, and he demonstrated that on the most recent Joe Rogan one. Some are really good at it. And Mark Carney has his moments on these things. Sometimes he can be very sharp, very effective, and actually very funny. We've talked about other times kind of a drone. There are a lot of ums and ahs. Let's tighten that one up, sir. So they have the good days and bad days on it. They're not walking around as performers, but more and more we expect them to be available. We expect them to speak what's on their mind. And, we do obviously seminars in communications and, how to do this without umming and ahhing and all of that, how to be down to earth like the average person talks. They got to bring it down and not sound like academics. So there's always a challenge in the world of communications, even though the platforms and everything is changing.
Great discussion this week. Thank you so much, Barry McLoughlin. We'll speak soon.
Thanks, Rob.
Yep, the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants, Barry McLoughlin. Tom Korski, Blacklock's reporter, is coming up next on News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
He's been minding Ottawa's business. Tom Korski's back, the managing editor at Blacklock's reporter. Welcome back.
Thank you, Rob.
Things went a bit off the rails yesterday at the House of Commons Industry Committee. What was the meeting about?
Well, they'd met to cross-examine witnesses over Cabinet's decision, which just took effect March 1st, to grant really unprecedented low-tariff market access to Chinese battery electric cars, starting with a maximum quota, 49,000, rising 6.5% a year. That's not a lot of cars in the car market, but it's a significant amount in the battery electric car market, about 50%. So they got in witnesses, including some who really questioned the ethics, given the use of slave labor in the People's Republic of China and slave-made products that are completely built into their industrial complex. That's how it started.
Yeah. So one of the guests was Margaret McQuaig Johnson, a senior fellow at the Institute for Science, Society, and Policy at the Graduate School of Public and International Affairs at the University of Ottawa. She's also with a think tank called the China Strategic Risk Institute. I would describe her, Tom, as a China hawk. That would be my description. I would also note that she has a resume as long as my arm and yours of senior positions that she has held in the federal government. Here is Margaret McQuaig Johnston explaining some of her concerns about this deal.
I would not trade off the torture and armed surveillance of Uyghurs in Xinjiang for a marginal added number of cheap cars in Canada. That's not an equal trade-off by any means. And I was surprised that the government did it. I was very disappointed. And I think it's therefore up to the government now to reassure Canadians that there will be no EVs entering Canada from China unless they are entirely free of components produced by forced labor.
Right. So then it was Michael Maw's turn to ask Margaret McQuaig Johnston. Michael Maw was elected as a Conservative in the last election, crossed the floor, joined the Liberals, and also joined Prime Minister Mark Carney on his recent trip to China. Listen to this.
You claim about forced labor in Shenzhen. Have you witnessed this yourself? Have you been there ever?
I've been to China many times.
Have you witnessed
since
forced labor in
1979?
Have you witnessed forced... Just a short answer. Have you witnessed forced labor in Shenzhen? Yes or no? So did you get that from
work closely
hearsay?
with Human Rights Watch, where researchers did witness it.
So thank you.
Did you get that from hearsay? He says. What do you think of that, Tom?
It was, MPs were appalled, and they spent the rest of the hour hammering the MP for Markham Unionville. The last time I heard someone say that, it was the ambassador from China in speaking to reporters. This is a common device used by police states or countries that are run by organized crime, which is the People's Republic of China. Rob, the atrocities that are documented among the minority Uyghur Muslim population in Xinjiang, which is a far-flung province, really desert country, suitable only for slave camps, this has been documented 7 ways to Sunday. It's not even pleasant to recount the documentation that has been certified by Parliament. Forced abortion, organ harvesting, they take children from parents, they forced labor into these essentially concentration camps. There was a subcommittee of a Parliament of Canada Foreign Affairs Committee 6 years ago that called it the largest mass detention of a minority community since the Jews in Germany. Unprecedented. And to have this donkey from Markham try to be clever or ironic in committee really infuriated other MPs.
Yeah. Like Kathy Borelli. Let's listen to how this went off the rails here. Kathy Borelli's a Conservative MP.
Ms. McQuaig Johnston, I want to apologize for the member on the other side of the table.
Point of order.
Very rude to you.
Okay, colleagues, just one moment. I sense we've got a little bit of tension brewing. I have a point of order that I'm going to address. And then, Ms. Borelli, I've paused the clock so you won't lose time on the matter. Madame O'Rourke on a point of order.
Thank you, Chair Carr. So we've had frequently the Vice Chair use a similar line and tone in questioning, and so there's nothing untoward in terms of my colleagues' interaction.
Okay, thank you, Madame O'Rourke. Not a point of order that I see in there. Madame Borelli, you're of course free to use your time as Mr. Ma on a point of order.
Well, I obviously in public being accused, and I like an apology from the member from the other side.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ma. That would not be a point of order.
And it went on from there. Let's play the final clip here.
I'll continue with my apology for the behavior of the member across the aisle. You're giving very good testimony.
Point of order. I did not ask you to represent me to apologize, so thank you.
Okay, so colleagues, I think it's obvious that there is some disagreement about the language being used. I think we can move past this.
I think we can move past this. Michael Moss trying to now move past it. He issued an apology, Tom.
Yeah, not good enough. I'll tell you the problem with this. Canada has an international reputation for being really a laggard in terms of cracking down on slave-made products in the supply chain. This has been documented not just by labor groups. It's come up at U.S. congressional hearings. Our record in terms of search and seizure, interception of goods from China that are demonstrably made using slave labor, like, brace yourself, solar panels, tomato paste. The list goes on. This has been documented, and Canada has a very, very poor record. And when you hear the MP from Markham Unionville say something that would be unheard of in any other legislative assembly, in Markham City Council, they would arch their eyebrows. It's not a good look.
Yeah, we'll be right back with Tom Korski for Blacklock's Reporter. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Here with Tom Korski, the managing editor of Blacklock's Reporter. So the Prime Minister and the Minister of National Defense were in Halifax yesterday, and they claimed that Canada is now meeting, Tom, the 2% of GDP NATO spending target. But what evidence in Parliament is there to back up that claim?
None, unfortunately. There's no budget document, public accounts, no estimates. There's not a single budget line item that shows where they are getting their $60 billion spending on military preparedness as articulated by the Prime Minister. We asked NATO, and they said, well, we don't verify the figures. We assume allied countries submit honest numbers. The difficulty is we know that, as one MP, James Bazan, Selkirk Interlake, a conservative critic, pointed out, there's been some creative accounting. That is not a partisan remark. Indeed, they transferred, for instance, the cost of maintaining some 60 unarmed Coast Guard lifeboats to the Department of National Defense. They include civilian Department of Transport aircraft. If you assign the post office's 45,000 fleet of vehicles to national defense, you will increase air quotes defense spending. But as MP Bazan pointed out, you've done nothing to make the country more secure. That's the problem.
Let's turn about more news for tax time. The T1 is the master document, summarizes all of your tax information for the year. Why won't the CRA mail them out anymore?
End of an era. They say they want to save money, Rob. They're going to save about what do they say? 1.8 million. They are now telling paper tax filers, look at Grandpa, you're just going to have to print it up yourself. They are down to, as late as 2021, pandemic year, there were almost 2 million paper tax filers. Last year, they're down to about 500,000. They want to save money, Rob.
Okay. They are thinking about doing something about all the gambling ads people are seeing on television. What's under consideration?
The volume's significant, isn't it? It's almost distracting during some broadcasts. They are now saying, according to the Minister of Health, this came up really out of nowhere in Senate question period. The minister questioned by Senator from Prince Edward Island, Percy Down, who raised the subject of gambling ads ever since Parliament legalized single-event sports betting, bookmaking. And the Minister of Health said that this is under review, consultation, she said, regarding regulation in the name of mental health. Lots of data, Rob. There's so much research showing what this has done in particular to young men, high schoolers, or young adults in terms of the proliferation and the obvious self-destructive activity of sports gaming. And it's going to be interesting if there's any regulations. Parliament really took a flyer, and they didn't do their homework when they repealed a criminal ban on bookmaking that went all the way back to 1892. They're paying the price for it now, Rob.
Yeah. They do actually do some work there in the upper chamber. It's not all brandy and cigars. For example, I received an email this week from the Senate of Canada. Not from a senator's office, but from the Senate, which I've never received before. Hello, Rob. Major policy changes are increasingly being folded into federal budget implementation bills, limiting Parliament's ability to properly scrutinize them. A new report from the Senate Committee on National Finance urges senators to push back against the practice of embedding non-financial measures into budget legislation. For example, Bill C-15 includes an entire act meant to accelerate the development of high-speed rail that would introduce a process for expropriating land. Measures with potentially significant effects on Canadians deserve independent study rather than being rushed through as part of large, time-sensitive budget bills. And it asks, would you be interested in interviewing a senator? Signed, the communications officer, Senate of Canada. It's kind of weird, Tom, that the Senate itself would be reaching out. What do you make of that? I'm sure you've received the same email.
Did Senate National Finance Committee? They're getting fed up. I saw their report. Senate National Finance Committee is chaired by a conservative appointee, but it's a fairly nonpartisan, on-the-level committee. And there are members of that committee who've been around a lot longer than the Minister of Finance. And they are getting fed up with omnibus bills. People hear that. What's an omnibus bill? An omnibus bill is not a budget bill. It's only technically, it's called in the title a budget bill. They will put in every sneaky amendment, every skeleton in a cupboard, every hidden pipe bomb or poison pill that they can possibly think of into a, air quotes, budget bill so that no one has the guts to vote it down. My favorite, and this is what the Senate committee is talking about. In 2018, there were two omnibus budget bills that ran to 1,400 pages. One of them, on the 555th page, amended the criminal code to give Quebec engineering company SNC-Lavalin a break from a criminal prosecution for fraud. Right. How cynical is that? That's what senators are talking about. They're fed up.
Okay. Well, let's wrap up on one more. The Clean Energy Innovation Research Center, which is apparently an outfit, a government outfit in Montreal, was just audited. What did the auditors discover?
Well, job one was to lower greenhouse gas emissions. Problem, they didn't count greenhouse gas emissions. Other than that, the place ran like a Swiss watch.
Right. That was only $38 million of our money to pay 235 staff. That's fantastic.
With offices in 4 cities right across the country. Jobs, 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 Rob.
Great. Thank you, Tom Korski. We'll speak next week.
Thank you, Rob.
Yep, Tom Korski, the managing editor of Blacklock's reporter, minding Ottawa's business. Aren't you glad somebody is? This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Well, watching gas prices is like watching someone play with a yo-yo. There's not much relief for drivers. In Nova Scotia, for example, the regulator announced it would allow another increase of 1.4 cents a liter for this week. So the average price across that province about a 175.8. Diesel prices $2.35 a liter. $2.35 a liter. The Nova Scotia gas prices on par with what's happening across much of Ontario. In the Ottawa area, for example, gas is about $173.9. Diesel close to $2.30 a liter. You can do a little better than that in Kitchener, though, I notice, about $1.65 a liter regular unleaded. In Alberta, you can find gas prices in the Calgary area below $1.60 in some places, but the average price is about $1.72. Diesel is a relative bargain compared to most spots across the country. It's an average of $1.85 a liter. And across Greater Vancouver, gas prices are still above $2 a liter, around $2.04. And the diesel prices are among the highest in the country, $2.45 a liter for diesel. WTI, West Texas Intermediate oil prices trading as high as $98 US a barrel so far today, as low as $93, and right now sitting at about $98.50, so closer to the high of the day, while the Brent price is about $111 US a barrel. The average gas price across the United States today, $3.97 US a gallon. So you take into account the exchange rate, translates into about $1.35 a liter in Canadian dollars. California drivers pay the highest gas prices in the U.S., $5.62 a gallon. That's $2.01 Canadian a liter. And drivers in Oklahoma pay the lowest gas prices in the U.S., $3.24 though a gallon, or $1.15 Canadian a liter. Buy a lottery ticket. If you win, you never have to worry about gas prices again. The Lotto Max jackpot tonight, $60 million, 6 prizes of $1 million each. Tomorrow night, 649 gold ball jackpot, 18 million, and the traditional draw for $5 million. Good luck, everyone. And in sports. Well, the wait is over. Opening day for the Toronto Blue Jays, the club marking its 50th season. The first regular season game since the Jays' crushing loss to the LA Dodgers in Game 7 of the World Series, which was the most watched telecast in the history of Sportsnet. It's the Jays hosting the Athletics at Rogers Centre in Toronto. Kevin Gausman is making his first opening day starts in his 5 years with Toronto, and the first pitch is scheduled for 7:07 Eastern time. I suspect the Dome will be closed because it is March 27th, and the weather forecast calls for a temperature of -5 at game time. But you can catch it all on Sportsnet, Sportsnet Plus, and all across the Blue Jays radio network. Rogers owns the Blue Jays, and Rogers is also the owner of this radio station. So it begins the 182-game march to October. Go Jays, go. Talkback Friday, free-for-all Talkback. Pick a topic, and we will roll with it right into the weekend with your help at 1-833-668-2577. Join the discussion and start one of your own right after the latest breaking news on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day, and today it's the Friday free-for-all. So we always have topics ready to go, but we would prefer if you took the lead and let us know what's on your mind. So what's on your mind? What do you want to talk about? If you want to talk about something that's been in the news, there's always news. Lots of news this week. Lots of news. If you want to talk about something that you think should be in the news, you feel free to raise that here. Whatever it happens to be. It could be serious, it could be not so serious. We have a phone line for you. And all of our phone lines are open right now. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called before, just mention that, and we'll make your call a priority. 1-833-668-2577. We really haven't talked about the war in the Middle East in any great length this week, but it's going to hit the 1 month mark tomorrow. And remember when it first started, Donald Trump said it would last maybe 4 to 5 weeks. Well, tomorrow is going to be 4 weeks. Next week will be 5 weeks. Do you think it's all going to be over by next week? This is all going to be over? What do you think? At 1-833-668-2577. How do you think this war is going? What do you think of these news reports that the United States might be preparing for some sort of ground invasion? That it's getting ready to send thousands of ground troops to the region. What do you think about that? Do you think on Monday we could be seeing news reports about boots on the ground, U.S. boots on the ground in Iran? I just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, one moment Donald Trump is saying everything is going according to plan. We're ready to wind things down. But then you have, a loyal MAGA Republican all over the news this week, not happy about what she's heard in some briefings about what could happen with this war. Saying she can't support, like Nancy Mace saying she can't support what she's hearing in these briefings. Here's a question for you. If it takes U.S. forces on the ground in Iran to defeat Iran in this war, is that something you would support, or would you be opposed to that? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Here's another one. Just consider this to be a conversation starter, but this was a significant news story in Canada this week. Strictly a Canadian issue. Supervised drug sites, the drug consumption sites. You have two provincial governments. They're both conservative governments in Alberta and in Ontario. And they're making moves to close these places down. In Alberta, there are supervised drug consumption sites. There's one in Calgary and there's one in Lethbridge. And they're going to be closed by the Danielle Smith government. In Ontario, Premier Doug Ford has announced his government's not going to provide any more funding to supervised consumption sites. Cut off. So many of them are going to have to close their doors. They can't operate without funding from the provincial government. So on one side, you have these premiers, and they say these drug consumption sites, they are a failure. They do nothing but keep the cycle of addiction going, and there is increased crime and public disorder around these places, and government money would be better spent on treatment and recovery programs. These places are going to have to close. On the other side are people who work in the field, work in these facilities, users of these facilities. And they say the decision by both the Smith government and the Ford government will kill people. Will kill people. People are going to die because of these decisions. They will die of drug overdoses. And they say it will mean more open public use of drugs on sidewalks, in alleyways, playgrounds, on the street. And if you don't like that already, with the closure of these facilities, it's going to get worse. And the advocates for these drug consumption sites are also on the record saying supervised consumption sites do act as a gateway to treatment and recovery programs. And closing them down will only cut off a corridor to seek treatment for drug addiction. Where do you come down on this issue? Where do you come down on this issue? These facilities, drug consumption sites, have been controversial since the very first one opened in Vancouver, Insight in Vancouver, decades ago now. They are no less controversial today. And you have two premiers now, Danielle Smith and Doug Ford. They are taking a hard line on this. No more government money for supervised drug consumption sites. Do you think that's the right decision or the wrong decision? Do you think supervised drug consumption sites prolong addiction? Or do they keep people alive long enough so that hopefully someday they will seek treatment? 1-833-668-2577 to have your say on that issue. And here's another one, just a conversation starter. Government-run grocery stores. Do you think that's a crazy idea, or could that actually work? The government running a grocery store. I bring this up because the federal NDP is going to pick its new leader on Sunday, convention in Winnipeg. Frontrunner is a guy named Avi Lewis, far left-wing activist. Nice enough guy, but very left-wing. And this is one of his ideas. Public grocery stores or government-run grocery stores. This was an idea that the new mayor of New York City, who is also a socialist, ran on in the New York City election, and he won. Taxpayer-owned and operated grocery stores. But the idea is, look, the government provides the real estate. The operation doesn't have to pay property taxes, doesn't have to buy the property, doesn't have to pay rent, anything like that. So there are savings there. Savings on the overhead of the operation that are eventually passed on to the customer. Groceries will be less expensive because of it. And the promoters of this say we all won't be held captive anymore by those food barons who run the grocery stores these days. Do you think that could actually work? Could it save people money on groceries if the government ran a grocery store? 1-833-668-2577 is our call-in line. Nothing more than conversation starters. I'd love to know your take on them, though. You feel free to raise an issue, a topic of your own. We would love to follow your lead today. And we love hearing from first-time callers. Be sure to mention that to Curtis if you've never called before. the Friday free-for-all talkback. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Friday free-for-all talkback today. Regine, I believe it is. Is it Regine in Alberta?
Oh,
Regine?
hi. It's
Hi there. Regine. My apologies. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you. Hi, Rob.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Very good. Thank you very much.
Good.
What's on your mind?
So, I would like to talk about the Canadian Dental Care Plan.
All right. What about it?
Okay. Well, first of all, it's been wonderful. I am not calling in to complain about anything, actually. But what I find a little bit frustrating is that, and when people come in to get their teeth cleaned, it's kind of building units of time. So people usually come in twice a year for, say, 3 units of scaling. But this dental care plan only allows adults, like anyone over 18, 4 units of scale, right? So the people that are applying for these benefits and being approved, they make kind of like median money, I suppose, compared in Calgary. You have to make like less than $90,000 a year. And so if you're on the lower end, you can get 100% coverage. And these people have not, as a general statement, people that have the Canadian Dental Care Plan do not have regular benefits paid for by themselves or their employer. So they avoid the dentist because nothing hurts and it's too expensive, which is understandable. Now they can get this benefit, and they're going to need more scaling units, but they only get 4. So
they only get 4.
They won't have, they only
So
get
do you
4.
think it should
then,
cover more than 4?
I do. It should. I think if they would increase everybody to say, then people can come twice a year for 3 units. And that's
You just dropped out there. If you could increase it from 4 to what? You just dropped out there.
To 6.
To 6. Okay.
You know, and then they can come twice a year for 3 units. I just don't know how I can actively kind of get that out, you know, because it's the federal government. So it's not like I can just call them up and say, hi, I'd like to talk to somebody about your dental care plan, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So,
well,
like,
I mean, calling this show. Calling this show might be one way to do that. You know, you can call your MP.
Yeah.
I don't know how open they will be to hearing that. You probably have a conservative MP right now.
Probably. Well, yeah, Danielle Smith is actually the MP up here.
No.
She has
Danielle
office,
Smith would be your provincial representative, but this is a federal program, right? So
Sorry. Yeah. But I just thought you would be a good first step to kind of just get it out there and say that if you don't have benefits, you should apply because it's a great program, you know?
Very good. I appreciate your call and bringing that up. 6 instead of 4, she says. Cleaning sessions a year. Chris in Halifax, first-time caller. Hello, Chris.
Hey, Rob. How are you, bud?
Very good, Chris. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Awesome. No, I love the show, man. It's awesome, man. You do a great job. Yeah,
I appreciate that.
I listen to you every day. Okay. Let's talk a little Jays. Are you
Jays?
Are you involved? Who's your team?
I cheer for the Toronto Blue Jays. I didn't always cheer for the Toronto Blue Jays, but I grew up as a Montreal Expos fan. But then when the Expos moved to Washington, I was like, well, I'm not cheering for Washington. I guess I'll cheer for the Jays now. And ever since then, I've been a pretty loyal Jays fan.
I got to tell you a good Jerry Park story. I went to Jerry Park. I was 10 years old. I saw Lefty Carlton and Steve Rogers pitch. They had the bullpen on the first baseline. And, it was pretty cool. Yeah,
It would have been pretty cool.
I've been at the old Jerry, and
I was never at the old Jerry. I went to Big O a few times. I went to Big O a few times.
I met Youpie a few times.
Yes, I also met Youpie.
Yeah, big Expos fan for sure. That was my team growing up. And then
you and me both.
When the Jays, they played at that dump, the exhibition stadium, where that was a dump. And I've been a fan. I remember watching games during snowstorms like that. So I'm looking forward tonight. Rob.
Me too.
Seeing, I was at the game when Carter touched them all.
Were you? Wow, that must have been something. Touch 'em all, Joe. You were at that game. Touch 'em all, Joe.
My girlfriend caught a foul ball.
Very cool.
I swear to God. Yeah.
Very cool.
And,
very cool.
And it's going to be good. And Cito Gaston, he's my favorite manager of all time. And that guy the Expos had was pretty good too. That crazy guy, but.
Well, the Expos had a few crazy guys. The Spaceman Lee. You remember Spaceman Lee? Bill Lee?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He was a bit out there. Yeah, he was a bit out there. Right. Look, I love your call. Go Jays, go. I'll be donning the jersey that I got at Rogers Center a few seasons ago and settling in to watch the start of the baseball season. I'm looking forward to it to see hopefully what will be the new and improved Jays. Friday Free for All Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It's Friday Free for All. Rick is in Dartmouth. Hello, Rick. You're on Talkback.
How you doing, Rob? Look,
Good,
today
Rick.
was an interesting day on the frontier for Rogers. On Monday, we've certainly not been told who, but it looks like we're going to have a new talk show host for the regular weekday, 10 to 1 here. Todd Bino made his last appearance today on the show, and everybody got to wish him well and goodbye and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see what happens. We don't know yet who's going to be replacing him. Dan Alstrand was taken over for the last year or so. Secondly, Toronto Blue Jays, that's a great story, and I'm a big Blue Jays fan too. But on the Expos, I was an Expos fan and not a Blue Jays fan, just like you. And I did get to see the Expos in '85 on my way back from Lacrosse Nationals in BC, and got to see Andre Dawson hit an opposite field home run. And I was just amazed because, on TV, the ball gets hit and it goes way up in the air, and then it comes down. Anyway, his was a line drive. It literally took 2 seconds from the bat to the stands. Bam!
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, the third thing on the Expos is I was coached by a guy here in Nova Scotia who was scouted by the New York Yankees in the 60s. His name was 50s to 60s. His name was Mike Thompson. And he coached me in junior baseball. I was a second baseman. Anyway, he was just inducted into the Maritime Sport Hall of Fame. And congrats, Mike. He's in his 80s now. But anyway, he remember he gave me his card once, and he was a scout for the Expos in the 80s. So that was kind of cool. But the reason I'm calling, and I'll make this short as I can, is the alleged invasion of Iran by boots on the ground.
Yeah, do you think there'll be boots on the ground?
Well, it would be a foolhardy thing, okay? And obviously, the numbers are what tell you that. There are approximately 10,000 troops that could go somewhere. They either have to land by either aquatically in the Strait of Hormuz or by air. And the air
paratroopers
version is pretty slow. The Ospreys and the helicopters, they just get blown out of the sky, in my view. But once they land, they're sitting ducks. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. Iran has a standing hour of 450 500,000 plus reserves of another 400,000.
They think it'd be foolhardy. Okay. We're going to run out of time. Rick, thank you. Good to hear from you today. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It's a Friday free-for-all Talkback. Love to hear from you. Join the discussion. Start one of your own. You're on Talkback. Herman is up next in Calgary. Hello, Herman. All right, let's try Mike in Lethbridge. Hi, Mike.
Hi, how are you, Rob?
Yeah, very good, Mike. Thank you, Mike. Go ahead.
Yes. Thanks for having this show. I like the open platform. I just wanted to comment quickly on two different topics. First off, I'd like to comment about the general attack on the temporary foreign worker program in our province. One of my concerns with this is that myself, I have a relationship with someone who has been part of that program, and I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of the people that are working in some of these greenhouses and whatnot in southern Alberta. And I can tell you, as a conservative voter, that most of the people that vote conservative have a feeling and a consensus that temporary foreign workers are invading our province, taking our jobs, milking the system, using finances. And I can tell you from personal experience that these people are some of the most genuine, hardworking people in this province. They get paid very little. They live in houses with 10 people at a time. They get up at 5 in the morning. They work hard. They pay taxes here. And they don't have any medical or dental coverage. And they are happy to go back when they're told. But I think it's unfair that we look down on these people. They're doing jobs that I know my son probably wouldn't want to do. And these jobs are needed. They grow our food, they grow our cucumbers, our tomatoes, and they work really hard and appreciate.
Yeah, in the agricultural sector, whether it's greenhouses or in working on farms, it's popular in wineries in Niagara, for example, that kind of work. Maybe it makes sense, and maybe you're right. Will Canadians do farm labor? Probably not. And would you want Canadian teenagers doing farm labor? Do they even know how to do it? Probably not, right? You wouldn't want me picking cucumbers. I can tell you that as a 17-year-old. You'd be out of business. I could understand that. And even the conservatives have said, well, yeah, there would be some, if they were to do a crackdown, say, on the temporary foreign worker program, there would be some industries that would need to be exempt, agriculture being one of them. Seasonal industries like agriculture in Atlantic Canada, seafood. Canadians won't go work in fish plants anymore, apparently. But do you need them in fast food restaurants or restaurants at all?
I don't think
or the
so.
hospitality sector?
I agree with you. I guess one of the things I would like to see is just that if a worker shows that they've paid taxes diligently and worked for 3 years or more, I mean, why not offer these people the opportunity to become voting conservatives rather than attacking them? These people would demonstrate a good work ethic in Alberta. They would raise families that want to pay taxes as they have done, and they would have a genuine appreciation for our country and for the opportunities provided, just as my grandparents were. The other comment I wanted to make was on the drug sites, the safe use consumption sites. I live in Lethbridge, Alberta, and I can tell you I work in an industry very closely related. And our town has fallen apart since the introduction of these sites. We have rampant drug use. It doesn't keep it local to just where the safe consumption site is. And we have a high crime rate. We have a lot of violence that occurs. We've had people killed in grocery store parking lots. We've had security guards attacked. We have a huge problem with this drug use in public. And I agree with the province. I think that we need to clamp down on that.
Okay.
Recovery,
So,
obviously, is something that should be.
I understand. I'm just going to provide the other side and I'm not saying I disagree with you, but this would be the other side. All of the problems that you're explaining right now if you close the supervised consumption site, do you think they go away?
I don't think the problems go away immediately. I can tell you from my experience that these sites have drawn people to our town. They've brought newcomers into our town that are drug addicted because they have supplies given to them. They have an opportunity to, I guess if you want to call it, safely use drugs here. But I don't think the problem immediately goes away. But prior to these sites, I know there was drug problems in our town, but you didn't see it as rampant. You didn't see it in the parks. You didn't see needles everywhere. You didn't see the same violence and crime occurring because people were doing it at home. Now it's out in the open. It's become normalized. People have accepted the idea that there's going to be people very high on opiates walking up and down the street. And I think that, yes, it's important to be compassionate and understanding towards these people that have serious drug addiction. I totally agree with that. But the provincial leader at one point mentioned a mandatory treatment process. If you're picked up...
Mandatory treatment, yeah.
Yes, and I feel like the police should have the power to do that, that if you're picked up frequently on the street, you're out of your mind on drugs, you're stealing, you're getting involved in crime, you're hurting people, like, we need to be able to put them in a mandatory treatment. And then there needs to be some follow-up as well, where maybe some work programs and things like that give a person a sense of belonging, a sense of accomplishment, whereby the treatment isn't just getting off the drug, but it's also becoming part of society where you can develop a sense of self-worth and know that, hey, maybe I'm cleaning up parks, I'm working city jobs that normally we pay $30 and $40 an hour for people to do. Why not have these people in treatment do it for $15 an hour, but have a sense of belonging, be able to save some money and offset some of the costs to the taxpayer. These people could earn a living, become part of society, build up their emotional well-being, and realize, hey, I can be a person too.
But on the question of the day, because we're going to have to wrap up our conversation here, whether you support or oppose in your case, the Smith government's move to close these sites down, you think that's the right decision? Close them down?
Well, I do, 100%. I mean,
100%. Okay. Yeah, we've got to run there. Thank you. In Lethbridge, Mike, where they are closing one of those supervised consumption sites down, another one in Calgary, and in Ontario, no more government money from the government of Ontario. So many of the supervised drug sites will have to close. That's one of our topics today. If you want to jump in on that one or pick one of your own and tell us what's on your mind, it's the Friday Free-for-All Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It's a Friday Free-for-All Talkback. Well, let's go to Cambridge today. Cambridge, Ontario. Wade is there. Hello, Wade.
Yeah, hi, Rob. How's it going?
Yeah, very good, Wade. Thank you. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I'm 100% that we need to close all these injection sites.
Why is that?
Why do we let people do illegal drugs? They're all illegal. They're not, like, who are we helping? It's like telling an alcoholic, you put them in rehab and you say, oh, well, you know what, you can still drink. We're not helping anybody by letting them do illegal drugs. It's a choice. When are people going to wake up and take responsibility for the things they do? Every action has a reaction. If they don't, even if we close them, they're still going to do drugs. Even if it's a choice. These people need to just, it's ridiculous. It's like putting pads in men's washrooms. That's how stupid it is.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
well,
but
I don't know. I understand. I don't know if the two are the same. But you're along the lines of Doug Ford, that they're doing more harm than good, and that they're making the community less safe. There's an increase in public disorder around these places, and it's time to shut them down.
Absolutely. The crime is going to there. The drugs are always going to be there. They need to make a choice. If you really want to get help, there's help. There's help everywhere.
Okay. The people who run these places, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I'm not saying I necessarily disagree with what you're saying. The people who run these places say this is a place where they can get help. That it's not just about coming in and having a so-called safe space to do these drugs where you get clean needles. And in some cases, the drugs are even offered as well. But that it can act as a gateway. Like you can ask the workers in there, if you have a moment of lucidity, hey, I want to get clean. Can you direct me to a treatment program? I need some help. This sort of. If you do hit that rock bottom that they say you have to, that you have to hit, that there are people there who can direct you in the right to a program.
Exactly, but nobody's taking that. They want to do. This is the problem. They want to do the drugs. You're not going to stop somebody to do drugs if they want to do drugs. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. The help is there. You can tell them the help is there. They're not going to get it. They don't want it. All they want to do is drugs. And the violence is going to be there all the time. So, you know what? Start grabbing them off the streets when they're whacked out of their head, put them in a hospital, put them in rehab, give them a choice.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I agree with that. I mean, I know some governments are moving in this direction, and we can debate this as well. Mandatory treatment. Do you want a law that makes it possible to force people with a drug addiction into treatment against their will? Do you really want to do that?
So if that's how we're going to get rid of the drugs, then fine. I'm all for it. Sometimes you got to force people to do things they don't want to.
Okay. Thank you. Yep, you raised some interesting points, Wade. Let's go back to Halifax. Donna's in Halifax. Hello, Donna.
Oh, hi. Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
In my opinion, this is regarding this CEO speaking English instead of French. In my opinion, there's no need to exploit a heartbreaking loss of life just to score cheap political points. The emphasis should be on the victims, not on the language spoken. The CEO, when it was on TV, I watched it. It was in English, and the French was underneath. That's fine. And both languages were there. Now, one of the pilots, I think, was from Quebec.
But is it fine?
From Ontario.
But is it fine? But is it fine? Is it fine? What if you were what if you were a unilingual francophone? Would you think that was fine?
Well, I watched it, and if they were speaking in French, and I wouldn't know what the heck they were saying. The majority of Canadians.
And how would you? And how?
English.
Yeah. Well, it's not about the majority. It's not about the majority. It's a bilingual country. We have 2 official languages in this country.
Yes, we do, and both languages were there. He spoke, and the guy
he said 2 words. He said bonjour and merci, and the rest, and the rest of it was all in English. This is a company that's headquartered in Montreal. It's a federally regulated industry as well, the airline industry.
But
it
I
has
think
francophone customers.
Somewhere along the line that Air Canada employees did not have to be bilingual or whatever. But the thing is, he's learning French, like the Governor General says she is.
Right. He also said that 5 years ago. He also said that 5 years ago when he was called to the carpet for the exact same thing.
And I don't think he should lose his job. And the media and everybody made a great big deal of it. Like I said, they were exploiting it. 2 men died. That's the thing, in my opinion. But I don't know. I'm English. I could understand what he was saying. The French was there. If the French wasn't
there.
underneath,
It wasn't there. Stop saying that. It's so totally inaccurate. It wasn't there, except for bonjour, all English, merci, goodbye. Pass and bum weekend. I'll talk to you later. 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, there are 4 or 5 lines available there, by the way, on Talkback today, Friday free-for-all. So if there's something on your mind, you feel free to raise it here. We won't be too long. Dallas is in Cambridge, Ontario. Hello, Dallas.
Yes, sir. How are you now?
Very good, Dallas. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm not too bad at all.
Oh, that's good. Now that we have the pleasantries out of the way, what's on your mind?
I'd just like to say, well, I guess I know where you stand on the issue that last lady just raised there, and I gotta agree with you. You know, whether the man should actually lose his job or not was another story. But I hear exactly where you're coming from. Being a Quebecer myself, I grew up there for 23 years. What can I say? But the main reason why I was calling was I heard a couple of callers talking about these CTS sites getting shut down and this sort of thing. Yes. You know, quite frankly, when the Ford government first came out and said, well, we're shutting down these certain sites where if they're a certain proximity to schools, public areas, etc. Yes. And oddly enough, the only ones at the time that I heard complaining, belly aching, however you want to put it about it, was the people either running or working at these establishments. Now, the thing that always got me was the name, Consumption and Treatment Site. Now, I understand it was up to the individual if they wanted the treatment or not. That's not what the name said. Now, when the one out on I believe it was Victoria Street in Kitchener closed down, there was a few people that frequented the place. They were on Mike Farwell's show. And the one guy come on, now whether it was actually fact or not, I don't know, but clearly he was a regular user of the place. He said, those guys saved my life 50 times. Right. Well, there's something wrong with that picture as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
I don't know about you.
Right. But that's why people, as you say, who are close to these facilities, either working in them or using them, are saying, if you close them, people are going to die. You know, they brought that guy back to life, 50 times, I guess, with Narcan or whatever. He said 50 overdoses or something, right? So when this site closes, what's going to happen to that guy?
Well, but ultimately, after they close these number of sites within the Waterloo region, now I can't talk about Ontario-wide or Canada-wide, whatever the case may be. Sure. But within the Waterloo region, those number of deaths actually dropped.
Isn't that interesting? That is interesting. Okay. Thank you. Dallas, good to hear from you. Hour number 1 in the books. Friday free-for-all Talkback. Love to hear from you in the second hour if you haven't called today. And tell us what's on your mind, and we can debate it. We can have it out right here on News Radio.
It's time to talk back
on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
It's a Friday free-for-all Talkback. Welcome to hour number 2. Help us wrap up the week together with your calls at 1-833-668-2577. We're open line, open topic today. It's certainly been a busy week in news, so whatever's on your mind, we're happy to hear from you. Another big news story today in Ontario for our listeners across the Kitchener-Waterloo area. I'd love to have your take on this. Is $100,000 a lot of money these days? Why do I ask? Is $100,000 a lot of money these days? Well, today is Sunshine List Day in Ontario. Every year, the Ontario government releases what it calls the Sunshine List. The very first Sunshine List came out in 1996, almost 30 years ago now. And it was under the Mike Harris government, a conservative government, under what was known then as the Common Sense Revolution. And that government said every government worker in Ontario, so for the provincial government, all the provincial agencies, all the provincial crown corporations, all the municipal workers, all the police officers, firefighters, paramedics, nurses, teachers, doctors, if you make more than $100,000, we are going to publicly disclose your salary for the year. But that was in 1996. You know how many people were on the list? 4,500. And some people were aghast, at the money. Some people were making what police chiefs were making, what hospital CEOs were making, all the people at the electricity utilities who are making the big bucks. For example, this year, the highest paid public servant in Ontario is a special advisor to Ontario Power Generation, made $1.9 million. The second highest paid person in Ontario also worked at Ontario Power Generation, made $1.5 million. And the third, fourth, and fifth people on this list all work for Ontario Power Generation. They all made $1 million. Okay. Is $100,000 really a lot of money now? You know how many people are on this list now working for the government in Ontario? 400,000. The first year it came out in 1996, there were 4,500. Now there are 400,000 names on this list. Because maybe $100,000 isn't really a lot of money anymore. Should we raise, in other words, the threshold for the sunshine list? Do you really care, for example, that a high school teacher makes $100,000? Should that be publicly disclosed? Their names publicly available, and here's what they're making? Or a nurse working in a children's hospital? Or a bus driver with some seniority who might work some overtime? That person is making $100,000, or the police constable? The CEOs of the hospitals, the top executives at Ontario Power Generation, the heads of the universities, the people making the really, really, really big bucks, like Mark Fuller, president and chief executive officer of the Ontario Public Service Pension Board, made $826,000 last year. Okay, I guess I can understand that being publicly disclosed, but a high school physics teacher makes $101,000. Do you really care? Do you really need to know about that? Or should it be raised to better reflect what, say, good money is these days, which according to the Bank of Canada's inflation calculator would be closer to $188,000 a year. Should that be the threshold to have someone's salary disclosed if they're working for the government? Now, I have also heard, well, if they're working for the government, I'm paying them and I deserve to know. Well, are you going to go through 400,000 names on a list? 4,500 is one thing. That's what it was in 1996. Now it's 400,000 people working for the government of Ontario, making $100,000 a year. What does that say about how far $100,000 a year goes? Let alone what it says, how many people actually work for the government in Ontario. It's just another topic that I wanted to introduce in hour number 2 here of Talkback. Thank you for waiting. Mike in Kitchener. Hello, Mike.
Hey, how are you?
Very good, Mike. Thank you. What's on your mind today?
Good. Just these consumption sites. Personally, I wish they would keep them. First of all, I'm over 30 years clean, and I was a needle user for years, for roughly 10 years. I'm over 60 now, so I've been able to keep track of over the years as to what they're doing about drug use, this, that, and everything else. And I will say one thing that I wish they would have had them back in the day, which they didn't. And I feel that businesses are really going to get hurt by this. And, people will say, what? How's a business going to get hurt by this? Well, I can tell you that I can't count on two hands how many times I went into a restaurant bathroom, whether it be a Tim Hortons, a Harvey's restaurant, a Chinese food restaurant, anywhere, to inject drugs, not only myself, but if I was with somebody, this, that, and everything else. And back in those days when the AIDS pandemic came out, everybody was all, about, not sharing needles. We need bleach kits. And that's what they started providing for people. And this is just going to bring back the sharing of needles, the unsafe part of it. And I think that the Ford government has not looked at the unsafe part of it.
Okay, very much the minority opinion today, Mike, on that particular topic. You think it's going to make the situation worse. I appreciate your call. Congratulations, by the way, on 30 years clean. But let me ask you this. Would you have been able to get clean if these facilities were around when you were using? Would you, being so readily available, would you have been able to get clean? Are you still there, Mike? No? Okay, that's too bad. All right. 1-833-668-2577. I would love to know the answer to that question. Friday Free for All Talkback. Have your say on it, any topic. And we'll do our best to understand where you're going. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yes, it is. Open line, open topic. Friday Free for All Talkback. Toby in Lethbridge, Alberta. Hello, Toby. Hello, Toby. Yeah, Toby, if you're on, all right, let's try Emerson then. It's very frustrating. Emerson in Calgary. Hi, Emerson.
Oh, thank you, Rob. First, before I forget, I wish you a beautiful weekend. You well deserved, I might add.
Thank you.
Rob, I have a question for you. The Supreme Court is listening to this argument regarding the Quebec law, whether you could wear religious gear to work and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question. Why is the Chief Justice sitting in judgment when he's already ruled publicly where he stands on this? He should be recused. The fix is in. I mean, this guy's not going to go any other way. He's already said publicly what he thinks. So why is he there sitting in judgment?
What has he said?
Well, he basically says that he doesn't see a problem with it. So if he doesn't see a problem with it, recuse yourself. So I don't get it.
I haven't seen any. Are you saying that he has said this prior to hearing this case that was before the court this week?
Yeah, he made some public comments prior, indicating where he stood on the where the notwithstanding clause, what Quebec did to get this through. He didn't find that was an issue. In fact, he said that he'd like to see more provinces do it. Like I'm thinking, why is this guy listening? Yeah, so
okay.
I'm just thinking, I have a question for you. When the judges go back after hearing this, do they independently write their own decisions and then release them independently, or do they gather together and discuss it? Well, how does that work?
Yeah, I'm not sure. You would know better than me, I think. You seem to be keen on the legal issues.
Yeah, I'm just troubled by the fact I see these lawyers arguing there in front of this guy, and he's asking a lot of questions, but he's already basically indicated publicly where he stands. So I'm not really sure, is he going to be able to persuade the majority based on what, because there's a lot of liberals on that court. And I'm just wondering, is this all a waste of time, or is it just all smoke and mirrors just for political reasons? It kind of troubles me.
I'm not familiar with any comments that he's made specifically on the Bill 21 case, which is a very important case that was before the Supreme Court this week. I'm certainly disturbed by public comments that he has made to the media in Quebec during news conferences in Ottawa about his opinions on the Freedom Convoy. Given that now the High Court is probably going to hear the appeal by the federal government on the use of the Emergencies Act to end the Freedom Convoy protest, because he is on the record as basically saying the Freedom Convoy took Ottawa hostage. He called it deplorable and that he hopes it never happens again. But he should have had the foresight to know Well, the use of the Emergencies Act is so extraordinary. That was the first time it was ever used since it replaced the War Measures Act. He surely should have known that civil liberties organizations would be all over that, and that cases could eventually appear before him about this.
Yeah.
And the lack of foresight I find troubling on that.
Yeah, and that's why he's made that comment. He's made this one, before this came up. I mean, I view him as an intelligent guy, or he wouldn't be where he is today. But I just wonder why they run their beak and then they don't say, hey, you know what? I think I said a little bit too much. I'm recusing myself. That's the honorable thing to do, and people would respect you for it. But to sit there and already we know where you're leaning, it's almost like a big joke wasting time with the court and fooling the public, which I don't think nothing's going to turn on this. I mean, based on his opinion. But I just wanted to see if you had any insight as what you think at the end of the day when the dust settles, whether anything's really going to turn on it or we're just wasting time here. That's why I just wanted to know.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, it's a very dangerous case because in Quebec, the notwithstanding clause, especially for the Quebec nationalists, is like, I mean, it's like motherhood and apple pie. And so it is with the current premier of Alberta. In fact, with most provincial premiers, we wouldn't have a Charter of Rights without the notwithstanding clause. It's what made the Charter of Rights even possible. We wouldn't have one without it. And if they rule that against Quebec's ability to enact a law in the name of secularism of the state, which is big in Quebec, post-Quiet Revolution, the separation of church and state, which the government says this is all about, you're going to have a whole heap of trouble. A whole heap of trouble.
Sounds like big trouble's on its way.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Emerson. Yeah, let's run. Anyway, we got to run. Thank you for your call, Emerson, and you have a lovely weekend, too. We'll be right back. We'll take more of your calls at 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. We're wide open today on topics. We'll go off in all directions. That's how we roll on a Friday. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
One of the issues that we've been talking about today on the Friday Free-for-All Talkback, all of our lines are available right now, by the way. Every single line is free. 1-833-668-2577. We've been talking about supervised drug consumption sites. The tide is really turning on these things. It would seem to me. You have conservative governments in Alberta and Ontario really making moves to close them down. In Ontario, Premier Doug Ford made it clear this week, no more government money from his government to support supervised consumption sites. Many of them are going to close because they can't operate without government funding. Premier Ford was taking questions on this week. He defended the move.
Well, whoever the former mayors are totally wrong, because there was a study that just came out of University of Alberta that shows that is totally false. Matter of fact, in some cases, it cleans it up. You have two choices. Either build heart hubs that we're spending over $500 million to get them in there, to get them into rehab, to clean them up, get roof over their head, get them good paying jobs, get them back on their feet. I want to help these people, but I'm not going to sit back as you put these injection sites in the middle of communities. There's needles all over the place. It's dangerous for kids and communities. They're in the parks. It's terrible. And we're closing them down. We're going to do something else. We're going to help these people, rather than just giving them more drugs, more needles, encouraging drug use. I'm dead against. I want to help these people. It's like giving an alcoholic the LCBO card and saying, here's an endless spend limit. Go in there and we're going to try to clean you up. Not going to happen. So I'm passionate about this. I think every family has a friend or a family member or something has faced these situations of addiction. I'm passionate. We're going to help these people, but I'm not handing out needles and all the drug paraphernalia. Not happening here in Ontario.
Not happening here in Ontario, and not happening much longer in Alberta either, where the Danielle Smith government, the UCP government in Alberta, will be closing the drug consumption sites in both Calgary, where there's one, and in Lethbridge, where there's one. They'll be out of business by June, by the sounds of things. This was Premier Smith commenting on these sites. This was a few months ago now during the municipal elections in Alberta.
We used a process in Red Deer where the council made clear their intention and their desire to see the Red Deer safe consumption site shut down. And we said yes, and we started working on it. We've been asking Calgary if they want to do the same. And so they have not given us a clear indication, maybe because council is split and divided on this. But we think that there is an appetite for us to find a different solution. We now have opened our recovery community in Calgary. We have plans to start compassionate intervention, forcing people into treatment if they're harm to themselves or others. We put more cops on the street. We've got our sheriffs that are now also going to be elevated to a police force who can also lend a hand. So we're getting to a point where we have enough of those wraparound supports that I think we can shut down Sheldon Schumer. So I would like to say the only delay has been that it doesn't sound like City Council is of the same mind on that. So, I mean, maybe it's worth it to ask all the mayoral candidates, and maybe it's worth it to ask some of the council members. We're in the middle of an election now, but I have had active conversations with my mental health and addictions minister. If a city requests for a safe consumption site to be shut down, we'll shut it down.
Well, they're closing them anyway. The Calgary and Lethbridge sites, they'll be closed by the provincial government, the Danielle Smith government. You hear it. Especially from Doug Ford, not so much from Premier Smith. They're a failure. They keep the cycle of addiction going. Increased crime, drug paraphernalia littering the neighborhood. And they say the focus should be on treatment and recovery, even mandatory treatment. Involuntary treatment. The Premier of Alberta calls it compassionate intervention. People on the other side say, you think it's bad now? This decision will only make it worse. And people are going to die because of this decision. Where do you stand on it? This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, we're in the home stretch of the Friday Free-for-All Talkback, and we would love to hear from you today. 1-833-668-2577. Back to Calgary. Janice is in Calgary. Hi, Janice.
Hello there, Ron.
Yeah, hi, Janice. What's on your mind today?
It's probably not a big thing, but if any caller can comment on it at any time anyways. I live in a condo, and my condo's been broken into 4 times in the past 6 months.
I've been through this with you. Again, Janice, I've been through this with you before. I don't want to get into it again. I am not the condo complaint line. For people who aren't familiar, Janice frequently calls and complains about what's going on with her condo, and I don't want to get into that again. But thank you for your call. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. All of our lines are available. It's not just conservatives like Doug Ford or Danielle Smith who are calling for crackdowns and even moving to crack down on drug consumption sites. The conservatives on Parliament Hill are calling on the federal government to ban these sites near schools. They had a news conference on Parliament Hill this week, led by the Shadow Minister for Health, the Conservative critic for health, Conservative MP Dan Mazier, who was telling the story of a supervised consumption site in the Ottawa area, located very close to a school. And he has discovered, when he was doing his own inquiries with the public health officials in not just Ottawa, but in the federal government, they don't even keep track of where these facilities are going, how close they are to schools or playgrounds or other recreational facilities. These sites can't operate unless they have an exemption from the federal drug laws. They have to have an exemption from the federal government. So there is a federal role to play here. Let's listen to Conservative MP Dan Mazier.
I watched a parent push their child in a stroller down the middle of the street to avoid a person smoking crack on the sidewalk. Police have told me that it's not uncommon for children to pick up needles and give them to their parents. You let that sink in. And the sad thing is, this is not unique to Ottawa. Canadians and communities right across this country are living with drugs and disorder that cluster around these sites. Parents are shielding their children from open drug use on the same streets where they walk to school. Ironically, when the current health minister eventually visited a supervised drug consumption site herself in Vancouver, she required a police escort for safety. Families living near these sites do not have the luxury of a police escort to take their children to playgrounds. When I asked the health minister at committee how many of the federally approved consumption sites are next to schools and daycares, she could not answer. She could not answer because her own department does not collect that data. So let me explain this for the Canadians watching this today. The Liberals have been approving these drug sites for years without looking at what's next door. According to Health Canada, fentanyl is the most commonly consumed drug used at these sites, accounting for every second visit. Fentanyl is a drug so dangerous that a few grains can kill somebody. Yet, the health minister doesn't check whether a school or daycare is next door.
That's kind of remarkable when you think that they can't operate without an exemption from federal officials, and yet they don't even, consider how close it is to a school. I think the tide is turning on this. For much of the Trudeau government's time in office, the federal government was really hot on what was known as harm reduction, right? Which has taken on many forms over the years. It started out decades ago with things like needle exchange programs to cut down on the spread of diseases, hepatitis C, HIV, and then it advanced from there. And then came supervised consumption sites. And then came safe supply programs. And even eventually, in some areas, the decriminalization of the possession of all hard drugs. The most notable example, of course, being British Columbia. Although there were other places that were keen to go down that road as well, like the city of Toronto and the city of Montreal. And now in British Columbia, they backtracked on this after embracing it. But now you have these two provincial governments. They want to go in an entirely different direction. The Doug Ford government now denying funding to supervise consumption sites and says his government is going to spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars replacing those sites with these treatment hubs, health hubs, he calls, not supervised consumption sites. And these treatment hubs or health hubs, they won't be allowed to offer things like safe supply programs. In fact, the Ford government is facing a challenge over that law. And in the province of Alberta, Premier Smith has what she calls the Alberta model, recovery-oriented. More detox centers, more treatment facilities, certainly not safe supply, and now closing in Calgary and in Lethbridge, the two safe consumption sites operating there. And in August of last year, Alberta reported, I will note, a 55% drop year over year in opioid-related overdose deaths. Where do you stand on that issue? 1-833-668-2577. 3-4 lines available there. Love to hear from you today. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Derek in Red Deer is on the Friday free-for-all Talkback. Derek, what's on your mind, Derek?
How are you?
Very good, Derek.
Well,
how are you?
I'm good. I wanted to talk about the fact that the current government is going to make some changes to MAID, or DWD, Dying with Dignity. And I don't know that they should have the right to do that. For our whole lives, we're told that, we have to be responsible for our own actions. And the government and society at large feels that way. Everybody should be responsible for their actions. But as soon as it comes to the end of life, they snatch those rights away, and they think they have the right to make that decision. And they put a person in a situation where, they're laying in bed, they're fearful, they're hurting, they're gasping for every last breath. Why is that deemed to be the end we're striving for? Why wouldn't a person, when they get to a point where they say, I've just had enough here, I want to step off this mortal coil, they should have the right to do that.
Okay.
And it shouldn't be somebody else's, like a government in particular, should not have the right to put the kibosh on that with the vainglorious idea or satisfaction they've done the right thing. Because they haven't. They don't know that person's situation. They don't know what's the kind of pain that person is feeling mentally or physically. And yet they seem to think they have the right to make that decision. I just think that's wrong.
If I could, just so we all have clarity on what the Alberta government, that's what you're talking about, right? The proposed changes to MAID by the Alberta government?
Yeah.
Right. The only people who would be allowed to access MAID would be the terminally ill and people who are likely to die within 12 months. Their death would have to be reasonably foreseeable. Do you think that that's too restrictive?
That's too damn far. Yeah,
okay, that's the way the original MAID law was written, though.
I want to get off this before it gets to that point. When I get to the point where I'm enduring life rather than enjoying it, then I should be able to start thinking about maybe it's time to check out. And that should be my right. Suicide is not illegal. And but everybody seems to think it is, and they put the religious aspect on it, which is a bunch of crap. And
okay, well,
what?
Well, it is for it may be for you. It's not for some.
It's not for
Depends
some.
on your
It
view.
is for me,
right.
And so I shouldn't have to be a part of their thought process just because they think that it's against religion or it's not spiritual.
Yeah, I'm not sure
or godly.
if that's. I'm not sure if that's the Premier's motivation in making these changes.
No,
I believe
that's not
her
maybe the motivation with her, but it's the motivation with a lot of the people that are arguing this thing.
Well, with some, I mean, you have religious. There are some religious organizations that don't want MAID at all. Let alone what's known as Track 2 cases for MAID, where death is not reasonably foreseeable.
Yeah, well,
they don't think there should be MAID at all.
Yeah, but they don't have a right to dictate to me. If they don't want to have MAID, don't do it. But for the people who have made the decision that they only want to go so far, they don't want to be laying in bed, doped up by medical staff because they're easier to manage when they're doped up, and they don't know if they're awake or asleep or, and you're just warehoused until your expiry date. And there's no damn way that it's going to happen to me unless I get caught by some debility or catastrophic event that renders me helpless to take care of it. I'll take care of it.
I understand, sir. I understand. And I'm trying to be compassionate as I appreciate your opinion. I do thank you for offering it. It is a major reform, and no other province is going down this road other than yours when it comes to legislating restrictions like this on MAID. And it's not the only one. It's the biggest one because it essentially will end what are known as Track 2 cases for MAID in Alberta. There are a bunch of other changes, but that's the big one. The other one is you would not be able to access MAID if your only condition is mental illness, which is something that the federal government is also grappling with right now. But thank you for your call. I appreciate your perspective. It's always a difficult conversation. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
I want to bring you an update on a story that we were talking about with Tom Korski from Blacklock's reporter earlier in the show. This is the Liberals' Michael Ma problem. Michael Ma, Toronto area MP, was elected as a Conservative, and now he crossed the floor, you remember, and joined the Liberals. He was seated next to the Prime Minister in question period just the other day, sitting right next to the Prime Minister, both of them with wide smiles on their faces. Not anymore, I don't think, after an appearance yesterday at the Industry Committee by Michael Ma, where the topic of the day was importing Chinese-made EVs because there are human rights concerns. People who are experts in the field of human rights are concerned that we may be importing vehicles that have a supply chain that rely on slave labor from China, forced labor from China, most notably the Uyghur Muslim minority in China who have been basically they're in internment camps. One of those making an appearance was Margaret McQuaig Johnson, senior fellow at the University of Ottawa. She's also with an organization, China Strategic Risk Institute, and a long career in the most senior ranks of the federal public service. And she began by expressing her concerns about these vehicles.
I would not trade off the torture and armed surveillance of Uyghurs in Xinjiang for a marginal added number of cheap cars in Canada. That's not an equal trade-off by any means. And I was surprised that the government did it. I was very disappointed. And I think it's therefore up to the government now to reassure Canadians that there will be no EVs entering Canada from China unless they are entirely free of components produced by forced labor.
Right. So that Michael Ma for the Liberals is on the Industry Committee, and he begins badgering the witness. Let's play that.
You claim about forced labor in Shenzhen. Have you witnessed this yourself? Have you been there ever?
I've been to China many times.
Have you witnessed
since
forced labor in
1979?
Have you witnessed forced? Just a short answer. Have you witnessed forced labor in Shenzhen? Yes or no? So did you get that from
I work closely
hearsay?
with Human Rights Watch, where researchers did witness it.
So thank you.
Did you get that from hearsay? Did you get that from hearsay? So he later had to issue an apology. Now, today, the energy minister was having an event, Tim Hodgson. Why would questions be posed to Tim Hodgson? Well, it's been in the news. Tim Hodgson was the guy that was putting the lure on for Michael Ma to cross the floor and come to the Liberals. So they wanted to know, well, Tim Hodgson, what do you think about what Michael Ma said yesterday at the Industry Committee? Let's listen to this.
I'm just wondering, in your view, should he remain part of the Liberal caucus after what happened at the Industry Committee yesterday?
So Michael has already commented to the press. He said that his views did not reflect the views of the Liberal Party. He has apologized for those views. That's a question you should ask the Prime Minister and MP Ma. You know, what's important is Canada is recalibrating its relationship with countries around.
That's fine. Thank you. Not the views of the Liberal. Well, the views of a Liberal MP now, which kind of makes them the views of the Liberal Party. Even more intriguing is that the Prime Minister was in Halifax today. His first publicly issued itinerary said he was going to take reporters' questions today while he was in Halifax speaking to the Chamber of Commerce. He's been going around Halifax talking mostly about national defense related issues. But certainly because reporters were going to ask about this, you know what the Prime Minister did? He canceled his news conference and refused to meet the media and take any questions about what will likely become his Michael Ma problem, one of his floor crossers. I'm Rob Snow. Thank you for all your calls this week. Really Enjoy the discussion when you call. We'll have brand new topics on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. For Curtis Giroux, I'm Rob Snow. This is Talkback. The latest breaking news is next on News Radio.